either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird Shorts. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And in the spoopy season, we have decided to do a franchise that Chris has talked about since almost day one that I've known her.
Yes, I watch this franchise religiously every year on Halloween, or multiple times leading up to Halloween.
Which I have... Watching it once, I have no clue how you can do that.
I don't know.
Today we are talking about the Scary Godmother franchise.
Specifically, the two short movies that came out. Because this movie series was originally based off of some children's books and comics books that were originally created by Jill Thompson. And those are very stylized. They are children's books and comics, but they have a lot of witty humor in them, and they were fairly popular for a while. Similarly to how, like there's children's books that, and I know you don't have, like, children actively present to, like, force this sort of shit down you.
No.
But there are children's books that, like, will sweep adults for some reason, and they end up being loved even despite the fact that they are for babies. Like, let's be very clear. I am fully aware this movie is for babies.
Yeah.
The book series and the comics are also originally meant for babies, but much like Winnie the Pooh, there are some adults, like myself, who don't care. And we watch it anyway.
Arthur.
This is very much like Arthur.
Yeah.
Originally a weirdly drawn cartoon that then needed to be turned into a movie, but unlike Arthur, where it continued to be flat, and wasn't, like, Arthur was never super stylized because everything was an animal. Like it all worked.
Even that half animal Matt Damon.
Oh, even Matt Damon being whatever the fuck a Matt Damon is in that movie. But Scary Godmother, the reason a lot of people remember it is, A, it was shown on TV. I think it was a Cartoon Network short.
Yeah, because you've been talking about this forever, and I didn't think I'd ever seen it, and then earlier this month, you were showing me screenshots of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I recognize a little bit of this, but I know I saw it. I just don't know where or when.
So I'm pretty sure this show ran on Cartoon Network for quite a few years.
It had to have been around 2000 to 2003. Or no, sorry, 2003 to 2006. Because that's when I was living in Omaha at the time. So it was between... living in Europe at different times. And
I think it's one of those ones that, like, it's a safe Halloween movie. Like, there's nothing in it that anyone could possibly be upset by as far as for kids goes. So it's safe to run during, like, baby time on TV.
Yeah.
Which Cartoon Network has always kind of, like, had to toe that line a little bit, especially with the Scary season, because they could go full Courage the Cowardly Dog. But there's a lot of kids who that was way too scary for. There's some adults Courage is too much for.
Yeah, and I'm on the other side where, like, I embraced the spooky at a young age, and so I want my children's stuff to be spookier.
Fair.
Which I get it. I have a very distinct taste in everything. So
and Scary Godmother was definitely aired during the time frame it was meant for the kids who, like, even Snow White, like, the tree scene was too scary.
Yeah.
So that's where Scary Godmother fits in as far as, like, when and who it was aired to. But because it was on Cartoon Network, a lot of people accidentally saw it. And the animation style is so distinct that it's kind of hard to forget it.
It is very rough, almost Jimmy Neutron-ish.
Yeah.
Where, for me, the backgrounds are heavily styled, but the characters, like, it makes me think of old like Final Fantasy games where with the pre-rendered backgrounds, and the animation on top of it, and oh boy, is it rough!
I will not lie. Despite me loving this franchise, it is rough to look at. Unfortunately, it does kind of a weird thing where the background is very, like, harsh, and there's outlines to it but the main characters are very soft and not as cartoony.
Yeah.
So the characters don't feel like they're truly in the space a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, because we were watching it right after we watched the first one after our movie night, and immediately had to pause and go back because one of the background characters just runs through the other one.
There's a lot of clipping. There's a lot of problems with the computer models.
Yes,
there is. This movie would have been significantly better if it had been hand drawn.
Yes, agreed. But
the budget was not there for this movie.
Yeah,
this movie was made off of some spit and wishes and hopes.
And on top of that, the character designs are all over the place. Now, I don't know if that's how the comic book or the children's book is, but the four main pseudo antagonists. There's okay. So quickly, the plot of the movie, at least the first one, is there's 4 kids out trick-or-treating, and one of them had to bring along their little niece, and to scare them off, they send her into the monster house, and it actually ends up being front for the Scary Godmother's house.
Okay, this is the part where multiple watches helps with the plot.
Okay, thank you. I have no desire to go back and rewatch this.
That's fair. So visually, it takes some getting used to. Which is kind of a problem if you're not, if you don't quickly adapt to really shitty animation. You will lose some stuff because of that. So yeah, there's these kids. One of them has to bring Hannah, his little baby cousin, along with him. They don't want her, so they're going to scare her into going home by sending her into the old abandoned house on the street. She goes in, gets legitimately frightened by the kids, starts crying, thus introducing her scary godmother, who whisks her away to an alternate dimension where it's always Halloween.
Okay.
That's the plot of this movie.
Much better explanation than my...
It is a lot to take in all at once.
It's
a short film. I think it's only 40, 45-ish minutes long.
Yeah.
But there is a lot visually going on here.
You can watch both of these in an hour and a half.
Oh yeah, very easily. And so in the first one, we're pretty much spending all of the time getting introduced to the characters, and kind of, it's a loose kiddie plot. Let's be very clear. There's not a whole lot of character development.
There's monsters, but they're not really monsters. That kind of thing.
Yeah, the whole lesson to be learned from this movie for the first one is to not judge people by how they appear, and you might actually be friends with them. It's cute, it's simple, it's a kid's show. I mean, halfway through they teach you to make cracker PB&J sandwiches. It is for small children, be clear. However, it sticks with you. And not everyone, because there's a lot of people who watched it and then forgot, and then it kind of had a resurgence at one point. But there's enough of us who remembered it fondly that, the concept of the movie captured us, and that is the thing, I think the thing that keeps a lot of us coming back, is the idea of a fairy godmother who is just a witch. Yeah,
I mean, it makes me think of other cartoons that were from that time. Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
And at one point, part of the music sounds very similar to Fairly Odd Parents.
To be honest, the music, and again, the budget for this movie was very low, but the music's not bad. I don't hate it. It's better than a lot of kids' movie music, so I give it a pass music-wise. The jokes are sometimes funny. Most of the time, they're just a lot of puns. So if you're a pun person, it's gold. If you're not, it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, I like puns, but I don't know. I just can't.
It's a lot. It's kind of its backbone of comedy is the puns and silly gags.
I think it's one of those ones, as we've talked about before with children's shows or movies from our childhood that stick with us. This is one of those ones where it just depends on when you saw it and where you were at in life.
Definitely.
Like we mentioned, this one has stuck with you for a long time.
Very much so.
As for me, I only remembered it after you started showing me pictures of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's it's a hard thing is that there's not a lot to it.
No.
I mean, you have your standard cast of the skeleton in the closet,
Yes.
the witch, the spooky monster, the werewolf who is...
in sheep's clothing. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
He's wearing sheep pajamas. It's adorable.
And the family of vampires.
Yes.
And that's pretty much our whole cast.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's not... I don't know, it's just not... there. I've seen more movies that do more in 45 minutes as a short than this movie does. This TV movie does.
It's kind of a weird conundrum, because the books and the comics definitely do more.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're still for kids, but just kind of like how a lot of... like, example, Family Circus only ever had 4 panels-ish, maybe sometimes even 1 panel on the Sunday paper. It still managed to portray a story fairly well. And I think this is unfortunately one of those times where the book was really popular, the comics were pretty popular, so they thought, let's make a movie off it real quick, it'll be fine. But the characters weren't given time to be as fleshed out, even though the original source material is like a 12-paged kids book. They were still more fleshed out in the book, I think. Yeah,
and even then, like, I think that's maybe the issue too, is because it's like that kind of comic humor that I don't really care for.
And it's definitely the comic humor, which you can see that more so in the comic strip and the books. And that's because it's a visual medium. Mm-hmm. And it's a kid's visual medium, so puns work better when they're written, usually.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're all spoken in this context. So yeah, this is a bad movie, but for some reason, I'm not the only one who likes this movie.
And that's the thing. I don't know why, because, I mean, there's
no reason for this movie to be popular.
Yeah, and even then, like, the sequel's not any better.
No, the sequel, if anything, had the exact same budget as the first one.
If not less, because it just... I don't know. It's this genre that... or not necessarily genre, but just this type of film that... Yeah. It's good to have on in the background, if, like you said, if you have kids, but...
Yeah, if you have little kids, this will entertain them. They will watch it without any questions. But as you get older, especially if this is the first time you've watched it, there's questions that you're not going to get answers to. The art style never gets better, which is disappointing because there's hints of good art direction behind there. Like the scene where she's flying through the sky on her broom.
Yeah.
There's bits in there that you can see the original art style. And the original art style is great. That's part of the reason why the original books were so popular, is they're beautifully done. Mm-hmm. And the comics, even though they are still kid appropriate and still very much focused towards them, they're all black and white. They're very Inktober style.
Original Adam Family like.
Yeah, and so like there was a lot of potential there artistically that could have made this movie at least visually nice to look at.
Yeah, and I mean, we're also talking early days of CGI being prominent in television shows.
Which is true.
I think maybe with how things are changing, especially, I was talking with my hairdresser today about that they're making an adaptation of Uzumaki for Adult Swim.
Oh, okay.
But they're still keeping Junji Ito's art style still.
Which would be a huge part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this movie, it felt like it was, we like this property, let's create something cheap enough with it.
Yeah.
It's very budget heavy.
It feels a lot like those dolls from the Dollar Tree where eyeballs haven't been printed on quite right. Which is too bad, because the original art style is really, really cool to look at. And there's brief hints of it here or there, mostly with Scary Godmother. But it just... the medium didn't translate well. And honestly, I don't think they had enough time to develop any of this artistically.
Yeah.
Everything feels flat. The bits that have a lot of detail to them are kind of early in the beginning, / the backgrounds, which get done usually a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
When you have time, and then you realize, oh shit, I also need to do all this other stuff.
Exactly. It's rendering the environment and then just throwing stuff on top of it. It's like when, my mom talks about my dad watching this shitty sci-fi show. I think it was called like Warehouse 13 or something.
I also watched Warehouse 13.
Okay. She talks about this one scene where they're walking up a hill or walking upstairs and they're moving, but the stairs aren't moving at the same rate that they're walking. Yes. And it's just, it's that kind. And it also makes me think of, at the same time, like all these other old CGI shows that had CGI elements that haven't aged well, like Code Lyoko.
Code Lyoko, unfortunately, they picked a style and they ran real hard with it. Unlike this one, where they could have had a hard style and they didn't run with it. Code Lyoko had a style and they ran with it, which is why people remember the 7-headed children. Yeah. That was a lot of forehead. Bring it back down, por favor.
Well, and also, I think part of the thing that's jarring, we've talked a little bit about, like, the character's design, but, like, it's just so inconsistent, especially with, like, the humans, because all the
first thing everyone notices is the eyeballs.
Yeah, the little girl, what's her name?
Just the little girl.
The little girl. She has very large Disney-esque eyes.
She does.
Whereas all the other kids have beady little eyes, and the only one that you can tell is a girl eye is she has little lashes off the side of it. Somehow, even though she has eyebrows.
She has little eyelashes made out of her own eyeballs. And, like, I don't mind the character design where it's just dots or buttons for eyes. Yeah. If anything, it could add to the spooky factor. We've seen stuff like that done before. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the fact that Hannah has full-on anime eyes, whereas everyone else doesn't, yeah, it does mean that she, like, it does bring focus to her as the main character, but she's also the only one dressed up as a fairy princess. So, like, why do we care? She's also the only one on screen by herself most of the time. Yeah. So, like, I don't really care that Hannah has cute eyes and no one else does. Not from the fact that, like, I think they should all be the same, because I do. I think everyone probably should have had the same art style. Or
at least consistent, because I've been rewatching One Piece, and I've noticed that the way the eyes are drawn are different from the men and women. Yes. The women have the very stereotypical anime eyes, whereas all the men have different eye shapes, but all their eyes are beady.
Yes, that is very true.
Yeah, but it's little things like that where it's like, because it's consistent, you don't question it like you do in this one.
Yeah, and there was room for some potential backstory, not really backstory, but like world enhancement onto why Hannah is so much more detailed than all the rest of the characters. But we didn't.
Because it's who they spent the most time on.
That's unfortunately the obvious reason. Where there could have been put a little bit more work into like why the older kids aren't as like bright-eyed and cheery about Halloween. They didn't. There was no effort put into like building more character there.
Yeah, they're kind of dismissed, and they're just kind of thrown in every now and then of them freaking out over little girl gone missing. Yes. But I think the thing that sticks with people about this movie, even if they haven't seen or read the books, which I think is a lot of the people who, when I was looking through and reading through the interwebs about other people who also like this movie, because there is a good handful of us, like, there's a surprising number. You could say it has a cult following, then.
It does. It has, like, there's a weird cult following behind this little kid's movie. And part of the reason people remember it and like it and bother to watch it again is because there's enough hinted at the original source material, which has a full fleshed out world and characters, that it leaves you kind of making you put the pieces together yourself if you bother to sit down and watch it multiple times and then think about it for days on end, which is not most people. Yes. But it's enough people that it bothers us and we now watch it every year. That, weird. And I think a lot of us, and this is kind of what I got from a lot of people online who like it, is we watch it hoping every year that it's better than we remember. Because there's potential. There's potential for this to be a fun kids Halloween movie. And every year you're disappointed again, but every year you're going to watch it again because, God, man, that would be a really cool concept. The art style would be a really cool thing.
It's kind of like my route where I watch Cannibal Holocaust every year. Yeah. And fall in love with it because of, and I know it's a niche following, but how good of a movie it is. Yeah. But not good in the same way other people would think it's good.
Yeah. 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 So I think a lot of us kind of hope that if enough people follow along with us, maybe this movie will get remade and actually look good and have plot of any kind.
I have no clue. See, and that's the thing, because they did have the second one.
They did. They bothered to make a second one.
Which, the plot of the second one is much weaker.
It is, but it also introduces some concepts to the world that the book, and more specifically the comic strip, kind of hint at more than the movies did. Mm-hmm. Where the new villain is Hannah's cousin, the one who wanted to stick her in the spook house in the first movie. Well, he's now actually turning into a monster because he's trying to ruin Halloween.
In the stupidest ways ever.
Oh no, he is like full-on little kid being rude, calling you a fatty, sort of.
Sneaking into a grocery store and writing poison, flammable on costumes and candy.
Which honestly already have that written on them, like, you aren't special, young man. But like, yeah, it's very much like little kid logic, but like, I'm willing to overlook little kid logic in movies, especially for a kids movie. What I'm more interested in, and one of the things that little kids movies bring to the table that adult animation often just kind of either takes in the wrong direction or doesn't put enough effort in, is usually character design and world design. I don't care about them being explained, I just want them to look good. Example being the movie Tintin. That movie stylistically chose to go in a very specific direction, but it stuck with it.
Yeah.
It went in full force, and it didn't take it in a direction that turned it into an adult like version of itself. They leaned into the fact that it was originally a kid's book.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's still cartoony.
Now that you're talking about it, it's kind of a little bit opposite of how Monster House was.
Yes.
Where Monster House is very laced with adult stuff going on.
Yes.
That it's almost
distracting.
But at the same time, I appreciate it because it's more realistic.
Sure.
And then and I'm not that I'm saying these movies need to be realistic. It just they have to stick to a set of rules and obey them. And
I think two really good examples of what people hope that Scary Godmother not necessarily turns into, but maybe is at some point picked up and like revitalized into, is like Charlie Brown, and I'm saying this from a stylistic standpoint.
Yeah.
So Charlie Brown knew it was a cartoon. It knew what it originally looked like, and instead of choosing to adultify its visual style, it chose to keep it very like hand-drawn, kid-friendly. Granted, at the time it was made, that was kind of the only option, but they could have picked live actors.
Yeah, and they could have adapted it. Maybe they have. I don't keep up with movies like this as much as you do.
I know you don't, but so like there is like visually, I think for a lot of us who are interested in kids animation and cartoons, part of it is, the jokes and the writing, but a good part of it is the animation itself. We're very like visually interested in what it looks like.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Scary Godmother didn't hold hard enough onto its original roots that people really liked.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to see it redone, I think. I think if they redid it and made it visually appealing, I think it could be really popular.
Yeah, I think where it could improve again is plot-wise and consistency in the animation. And animation has come such a long way.
Yeah.
That there could be something to do instead of like how a lot of the creatures feel like, I put a ball and I put more balls on it. Those balls are eyes. It definitely felt like there was some limitations with how to model these characters too. Yes.
Which I think now we have less of an issue for a lot, even cheap kids stuff. Animation wise, we've gotten past that, I think.
Yeah.
And we've also gotten to the point where, I don't like it, but we've seen out of the anime world 3-dimensional computer models attempt to reproduce 2D work. And some of them have been gotten pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of them I still don't like, but they look better than this.
Yeah.
And they're still very stylized, which is part of the problem.
I could definitely see this as Netflix bringing something back for like a limited run.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, it's pretty obvious that Cartoon Network, who was the original one showing this, I think the only one showing this, it's really obvious that Cartoon Network does not care about this content, because part of the reason we're covering it, because our shorts, we like to pick stuff that's easy for everyone to also watch.
Yes.
And we were pretty disappointed with Netflix's and Amazon's releases for the spooky month.
Yeah.
They're limited at best.
Netflix is getting better, but Amazon's is in the niche genre. They're very much my style of film, but...
which is fun. And I like those movies too, but especially if you want to watch something with everyone, it's really hard, especially with those being our two main contenders, to find something good. And Disney Plus this year chose to just, since this is kind of, I think, their first Halloween, they're just putting out the stuff that's already out there, like Halloween Town and Hocus Pocus. That's not new. I've seen those. I love them. I'm going to watch them again, but that's not new.
Yeah.
And while this movie is terrible, and it's been out for a long time, my money is that a lot of y'all haven't seen it. And guess what's free on YouTube?
This movie. Both of these movies. And
it's not like, oh, someone's recently put them up. These movies have been out. Like, this is how I have watched these movies for the last, decade.
Yeah.
And so,
they just haven't...
It's clear that no one cares about this stuff. Because, especially on the YouTube world, a lot of big companies have gotten onto our smart tricks. And a lot of this stuff gets flagged or taken down pretty quickly if someone cares about the content.
Exactly.
But it's clear that no one does. So, hey, Netflix, I don't normally like you, but boy, it'd be easy to pick this one up and make an entire show out of it.
Do something with it, maybe.
It would make a cute Halloween cartoon, put 8 episodes out, and call it done. They can each be 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. The cartoon's really great. If you like the concept of Scary Godmother, read the material. It's so much better. The art style is gorgeous. The jokes work a lot better.
So we can clearly say that you would recommend watching this.
No. Do not watch this. This is terrible. This is a terrible show. But if you, like me, are running out of things to enjoy that are in the spoopy category, this isn't a bad option. It's not great. It's going to hurt your eyeballs. But if you're desperate, or if you've made it through all of the Swan Princess movies like myself, you will like this movie.
I would only recommend this movie if you are plastered.
Yes, this is a good plastered movie.
And have friends over.
Yes.
Because otherwise, you're just some drunk asshole watching a horrible children's cartoon.
It is a terrible children's cartoon. However, if you, like me, like to dream about what the children's cartoons could be, this is an interesting one to pick up. The concept is cool.
Yeah.
The idea behind it, real good. If you like it at all, read it. It's so much better. It's still 12 pages long, but it's better. The art style is much better. Yeah. And you can see why they, at the first time, wanted to make it into a movie.
Yeah.
And then everyone only remembers this terrible movie.
And I am glad that we decided to cover both movies at one time, so I don't ever have to look at this stuff again.
Until next year rolls around and I watch it again.
I will stay at home and watch gory shit.
Fair.
Yeah. Anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Shorts.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.